of proliferation and need to rededicate ourselves to prevent the spread of weapons of mass destruction, particularly into the hands of a state or a group with terrorist connections.
But the Pentagon's handling of the intelligence is coming under criticism. The head of the UN Nuclear Monitoring Agency has questioned why the U.S. withheld the intelligence information until now. Syria's ambassador to the United States, Imad Mustafa, also questioned Mullen's statement.
Why didn't they rush with the evidence immediately the day they struck? Think hard. Don't be gullible. Don't just follow their stories. Don't repeat. Don't fall into the same trap that the New York Times and the Washington Post have fallen to in preparation for the war in Iraq.
In Gaza, 6 Palestinians, including 4 young siblings, died earlier today after Israeli Defense Forces shelled their home. The 4 siblings ranged in age from 6 years old to 15 months. President said an Israeli shell smashed through the ceiling of a 1-story house where the family was having breakfast. The children's mother was critically wounded in the explosion. In Iraq, at least 10 rockets or mortars hit the green zone during a sandstorm and the latest attack on the U.S.-controlled area of Baghdad. Over the past month, 700 rockets or mortars have been fired at the green zone. Meanwhile, the Times of London reports a Los Angeles-based investment firm is pouring millions of dollars into developing a zoo, an American-style amusement park next to the green zone. The park that features a skateboard park, rides, a concert theater, and a museum. It's being designed by the firm that developed Disneyland. In other news on Iraq, a military court-martial has acquitted a U.S. soldier who admitted to killing an unarmed Iraqi during a house raid last year. Sergeant First Class Trey Corrales had been accused of premeditated murder and planting an AK-47 rifle next to the victim after the shooting. He would have faced a minimum sentence of life in prison if he'd been convicted. The Pentagon's announced it's suspending its briefings for retired military officers who appear as military analysts on television and radio programs. The announcement came days after the New York Times revealed the Pentagon had recruited more than 75 retired military officers to appear on TV outlets as part of a propaganda program. Since 2002, retired officers working with the Pentagon made tens of thousands of appearances for television and radio networks. 27 United Nations agencies are gathering today in the Swiss capital of Bern to develop a battle plan to deal with the global food crisis. The World Food Programme has described the crisis as a silent tsunami. Aid experts say that global prices that are soaring for food and fuel threaten to push 100 million people worldwide into hunger. Food protests are continuing across the globe. In Senegal, more than 1,000 people marched on the capital, Dakar, on Saturday to protest against rising food prices.
We are holding this demonstration because we are hungry. We need to eat, we need to work, we are hungry. That's all, we are hungry.
Meanwhile, a new report from the nonprofit group Grain has found that global agribusiness firms, traders, and speculators are raking in huge profits due to the global food crisis. Cargill, the world's biggest grain trader, achieved an 86% increase in profits from commodity trading in the first quarter of this year. The agribusiness giant Bunge had a 77% increase in profits during the last quarter of last year, and Archer Daniels Midland Company registered a 67% increase in profits in 2007. Hundreds of truckers are converging on Washington, D.C. today to protest the high price of diesel fuel. The price of diesel is now approaching $4.50 a gallon. Many of the truckers are calling for an investigation into oil company profits and government subsidies of the oil companies. In other economic news, a top housing official has indicated President Bush will veto a plan by Democrats to help homeowners refinance their loans and stay in their homes. Deputy Secretary of Housing and Urban Development Roy Bernardi described the Democrats' $15 billion housing rescue package as a, quote, costly bailout for lenders and speculators. Bernardi's comments came just over a month after the Treasury Department helped orchestrate the bailout of investment bank Bear Stearns. As part of the deal, the Federal Reserve agreed to lend J.P. Morgan $30 billion to secure some of Bear Stearns' mortgage investments. In news from Canada, 5 Mohawk protesters remain in custody following their arrest on Friday. The Indigenous activists were arrested after they set up a road blockade to stop developers from building on land in the Tyendinaga Mohawk territory in eastern Ontario. One of the Mohawk protesters, Sean Brandt, was arrested while giving an interview with the Aboriginal People's Television Network.
First Nations communities, this is it. Justice for First Nations communities. Lock us up. Anybody who speaks out, lock them up. KI6, Bob Loveless, lock them up. That's what it's about. Lock them up. Don't fix the problems. Lock them up.
Following the arrest, Mohawks in another part of Ontario set up a roadblock shutting down part of Highway 6. And Saudi Arabia's most popular blogger has been freed after serving 4 months in prison without charge. Fawad al-Farhan was detained in December after posting critical comments about Saudi government policies. Farhan is known as the godfather of blogging in Saudi Arabia. He defines his online mission as the, quote, search for freedom, dignity, justice, equality, public participation, and other lost Islamic values. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. We're broadcasting from St. Louis, Missouri, from PBS station KETC. I'm Amy Goodman. A New York State Supreme Court justice has acquitted 3 New York police detectives